Hello, and thank you for watching this ag forecast for the Western U.S. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, starting off with a look at the visible satellite picture here, focused on the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada as the sun comes up on this Friday morning. And you can really see the jet stream here, this extremely strong core of jet stream winds continuing to bring moisture and rainfall to western portions of Washington and Oregon, along with coastal portions of British Columbia off to our north. If we zoom out and look at the infrared picture, you can see this jet extension all the way back across the Pacific. Big fetch of moisture being brought ashore. We're going to see several waves riding this jet stream here, though. That's going to lead to some change across North America. Now, the last 72 hours, we've seen heavy rain across western Oregon, northwestern Oregon and western Washington, and then extending all the way up across coastal portions of British Columbia. And as we look at the next week, we'll finish it off with another 24 to 36 hours of rainfall across, again, the Pacific Northwest, before we shift to another dry stretch across the region, likely ending with a period of heat as we get into mid to late next week. So we look at the fire weather risk over the next couple of days. It's primarily going to be found across the Rockies, critical values here across southern portions of Wyoming, and then far northeastern Utah and northwest Colorado today. Tomorrow, elevated risk patchy across the Rockies. We'll talk about where the fire weather risk is headed next week as we get later on into this video. Now we're looking at 500 millibar wind speeds here as we get started here Friday morning. Again, that core of strong jet stream winds extending all the way back across the Pacific beyond the Aleutian Islands, but then making its way ashore here across the Pacific Northwest. If I just hit play on this, though, you see a pretty big change as we head into the beginning of next week. We're going to force another ridge up the west coast of North America here into western Canada, with a deep trough digging in across the central U.S. all the way down to the Gulf Coast as we get into mid next week. So what happens when we do that, we're going to continue to see this stream of moisture coming across the Pacific into the Pacific Northwest for another 24 to 36 hours. We're going to start to lose that fetch here as we get into later into the day, Saturday into Sunday. Now this next plume then is going to be deflected off to our north. It's going to bring rainfall again to coastal portions of British Columbia. But now as we start to bring ridging into the western U.S., we're going to start to get flow coming around that back off the Rockies and bringing dry air back into the Pacific Northwest. So as we get into the end of the weekend, Sunday into Monday, pivoting away from this pattern that's bringing moisture into the Pacific Northwest, and we're going to start to take that moisture feed then up and over the top of the ridge into British Columbia and then on down across the Pacific, or across the Canadian prairie. So as we look at the high-resolution NAM model, I'll just hit play here and let it take you all the way into Sunday afternoon before I click and bring it back. We'll go through time and show you when the rain is forecast to shut down. As we get started here Friday morning, a big swath of just soaking rains ongoing across the region. It's going to become a little more scattered in nature as we head into the overnight and the evening hours. We'll see much of the heavier rain then make its way on into portions of central Idaho and then western Montana as we get into tomorrow morning. We could see some snowflakes in western Montana and then higher elevations in northern Wyoming tomorrow morning. As we talk about the Pacific Northwest, though, we will see the opportunity for rain to continue into the day on Saturday, but again, much more scattered in nature, hit or miss showers, and then much of that going to be north of western Oregon by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon. That shuts it down, though. We see that precipitation make its way into Idaho and Montana as we get into Sunday afternoon. We then dry out across the Pacific Northwest as we head into next week. Still looking at picking up another 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, though, with this soaking rain that's moving through today, continuing into the overnight, and then the scattered precipitation that we'll see during the day on Saturday. So still picking up quite a bit of rainfall here as we go through the next 36 hours. Another look at it here with the European model. We'll take it deeper into next week and show you when things shut down. Again, the soaking rain continues through the day today and into the overnight, becoming more scattered, lighter, hit or miss in nature as we go through the day on Saturday, lingering into Saturday night. Probably going to be drying out by the time we get into Sunday. We'll see that precipitation, the last little wave of it making its way into Idaho and Montana, portions of northwestern Wyoming as we get into Sunday morning, some of that falling as some snow in the higher elevations again. And then here we go as we get into Sunday night and Monday, ridging taking place across the western U.S. We're going to shut down the precipitation and begin shifting into a pattern that favors hot and dry weather across the west versus this pattern that's fed moisture into the Pacific Northwest. So here's a look at the temperature anomalies then as we head into next week. Cooler temps across the Pacific Northwest right now associated with all the cloud cover and rain in the region. The heat over the last few days has extended from the Four Corners region off into portions of the Central Plains and the Great Lakes. As we head into the weekend, you'll see this area of cooler temperatures start to come up and over the top of the developing ridge here and then drop into the Central Plains right there as we head into Monday and Tuesday. This is when the big pattern change gets going. We'll see one more shot of cool air come down here from the Canadian Prairie as we get one more wave coming up and over the top of that ridge, really setting up this contrast in temperatures so that by the time we get to as we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, temperatures across the west will be anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees warmer than average, whereas across the Central Plains into the Midwest, we'll be talking about temperatures 10 to 15 degrees cooler than average. Now, the silver lining here, we are headed back to a hot and dry pattern across the west. We will undoubtedly be talking about an increase in the fire weather risk again as we head into next week, but we'll see some strong northerly winds behind the cold front that comes in here over the weekend into early next week. But as ridging sets in across the region, we start talking about the flip to hot and dry across the west. Wind speeds aren't looking to be all that high. We're not going to have a real sharp pressure gradient across the western part of the country. So we'll be talking about heat. We'll be talking about low relative humidity, perhaps some terrain-enhanced wind gusts in there that we will have to diagnose as we get a little bit closer. But right now, the wind speeds, the lack of really strong wind gusts during the afternoons might save us from more widespread critical fire weather values as we head into next week, even with the hot and the dry weather. Looking at the high temperatures then for the next 5 days, just to close it out. Again, pretty cool across coastal areas here, the Central Valley all the way into the Pacific Northwest, but we'll start to bring those cooler temperatures off to the east as we head deeper into the weekend. Here are your Sunday highs, and then here we go into Monday, starting to turn into a hot pattern across the west. Temperatures back in the 90s across the Central Valley as we get into Tuesday, with 80s becoming more widespread as well. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Eric will have a look at things with the ag forecast video in the morning. And then on Tuesday, I'll be back with your next look at the western region. I hope you have a great day and a wonderful weekend.